Welcome to Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer, a podcast where testicular cancer survivors, caregivers, and others who have navigated the cancer journey share their stories. The podcast comes to you from the Max Mallory Foundation, a nonprofit family foundation focused on educating about testicular cancer in honor and in memory of Max Mallory, who died in 2016 at the young age of 22 from testicular cancer. Had he survived, Max wanted to help young adults with cancer. This podcast helps meet that goal. Here now is your host, Joyce Lofstrom, Max's mom and a young adult cancer survivor.
Hi, this is Joyce, and with me today is Brian Sluga, who was 20 years old when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, a diagnosis that happened after his junior college track team didn't qualify for an upcoming national meet. Now, fast forward some 40 years to Brian's life as a husband and award-winning writer, blogger, cancer survivor, and customer experience consultant. He'll tell us more about all of these accomplishments in just a few minutes. So, Brian, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm very honored to be on your podcast. Thank you.
So I wanted to start with a quote I read in one of the articles I read about you, because I know you shared your story with many people over the years to help others get through their own cancer journey. And so this quote is from your August 2025 article in Cure magazine. So here's the quote. It says, "Your decisions, good or bad, make you what you are. Your story is filled with moments only you have. Remember to take the chance to open up and allow ideas to flow." So can you comment on that?
Yeah, so writing the book, it took nearly 4 years because I wanted to think of the very beginning when I first discovered the lump. There was probably 15 years after diagnosis that, like, the word today, party, means something different than it did in the 80s, of course. But I would go out with my friends and dancing with girls. Like the thought of a family and really settling down. My friends were getting married and having children and their lives were moving on. And I was still, I can say floundering around, but trying to figure my way with college and didn't want to keep running competitively, or was life going to would it come back? And so but it brought me to today, finding myself. So I guess they weren't lost years. They were years that made me discover who I am today.
Yeah, I get that. No, I understand that. I think a lot of young people today are facing kind of that same challenge. So let's go back to your testicular cancer story. Just tell us about it. What happened, when, treatment, anything you want to share.
I had several offers for mainly, one track and cross country for college scholarships, but track and cross country is different. They give you an offer, and if you don't score so many points, then in that year that you participate, then your scholarship money doesn't go.
Oh,
yeah. And so I got looking at it, and I thought, well, I'll stay home, closer to home. So in East Peoria, Illinois Central College, they had a cross country team. I joined, and we did really good. So the meet for all the mid-major colleges in the center of the United States, like 6 states there, were at this meet. And our number 3 runner missed the bus, so we lost out on those points. So we didn't qualify for nationals. That was the big thing. I was living at home because it's a commuter school. I went home to my parents. I took a long hot shower, and I was, quite frankly, saddened, depressed, because I thought we had a shot. Anyway, I felt something that wasn't normal. And so remember, I'm a young 20-year-old. Took about 3 or 4 showers a day because I had a job. I went to school. And then on the weekends, I was going out with friends. There was Remember when there was malls and pizza places? And cruising up and down, there was a place in Peoria. I was used to taking a lot of showers. This one was a little different because it was long and I had the water as hot as it could be. And so I jumped out of the shower. My dad was mowing in September 13th, when it's in the Midwest, when it could be 85 degrees one day or 50 the next. He was mowing the lawn and I waved at him and loosed him over. I said, "Hey, Dad, I think there's something here. Get in the car." So we went to at that time, your family doctor.
Right.
And he kind of checked me out and he said, "Oh, I think you need to be checked." He goes, "There is a urologist that I can get you into in like 45 minutes, an hour." And so I went over to his office, was real close, sat in the waiting room, saw him, and he started talking all this big lingo. And literally in probably 16 hours, I was in the operating table in my hometown's hospital. During that whole time, him saying, "I think it is a tumor and I think it's contained, but we can't guarantee that we won't have to remove it. This ear, out that ear." I heard that, but it didn't register. I wake up, nurse comes over to see me. I'm on a gurney in a hallway on the 4th floor. I remember that. And she said, "You're a very lucky young man. The doctor will be to see you." Lucky young man. Okay. I woke up from the anesthesia. So I reached down into my groin area and there's all this gauze. And I'm like, well, if everything was okay there, why would there be this gauze? And then the doctor came and he had said, good news and bad news. He said that the good news is we got it and we got it out of your body and I think you're going to live. The bad news is I couldn't save the testicle. Then it registered. Then this ear and that ear, then in the center, I heard it and I let this shriek out and just like, "What?" And he was kind of like, "Calm down. I'm going to do everything I can." And so it started from that shower scene. And in my book, it starts a little before that. It starts how, I ran and got the bug for running like in 6th grade. But water saved my life. A Jewish urologist saved my life, but water also was part of that. And there's a little bit in one chapter about the Bible and water and what it means. And so that was the beginning.
Wow. Wow. So from what you're saying, that's all you had to do. You didn't have other treatment or chemo or anything like that.
No. So from that, right after that, I had dye shot in me to figure out, because cancer cells normally go to your lymph nodes. So I had my lymph nodes removed. Well, and in the 80s, there was no lot. It hadn't been discovered. So I have a large 13-inch scar. Instead of going in like through your belly button or whatever, they basically slice you open like a tuna.
Well,
And I had CAT scan, lymphangiograph, kidney scan, CT, MRI, blood every 3 months, chest x-rays. I was poked and prodded more. Sometimes I would like to have not, I'm not wishing that I would have had treatment, but that I could have had it done and over with instead of it was going on. So that was why pretty much, a good 15 months of my life were just after that,
yeah.
not knowing is this all going to come back in the second one? Will I find a spot here or that? And so that's why this whole, it is so important for people to hear about my story, and that I went and got help or said, "Hey, I think this isn't right," instead of just wait. Because what if I had waited a month or 6 months? Or what if I hadn't even had told my father and I'd have been, yeah, this is something I really don't want to share. We wouldn't be having this probably.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of men that have they waited and they survived, but there was a long, long slog treatment and all of that. A couple of people, the caregivers, their son died because they didn't go. But yeah, you're right. Your dad was a great dad to take you right away. So you kind of already answered it. But I was going to ask, who was your support group at the time?
And it's in my book too, is at that time there wasn't. Now, if you have mental problems or if you have a gambling or a drinking or there's support groups, of course, on the national level, but with a church training, there really wasn't any support groups. And my parents were always there. They were at every doctor visit, every test and scan and that. But I have a few close friends that are in the book that pretty much helped me get through it. And that is very important.
Yeah, it is. I know. I'm a cancer survivor too, a young adult, and there weren't any support groups. I talked to a young woman. You might know that it's a Cactus Cancer Society, but I said, well, my support group after thyroid cancers, I walked down Michigan Avenue and bought 2 pairs of shoes. So it's like there weren't the groups that we have now. So
yeah. So this your show. It reaches. I mean, this is a support group.
Yes, you're right. It is. It's
Yeah, it really is.
So you talked a little bit about your book. Tell us about your book and your writing. I know that that's your background, and you graduated from Bradley in Peoria with a communications degree, and then I know you have your MFA from Lindenwood College, I think it is. So tell us about your book.
How the book really started really quick is my wife and I had repatriated from the UK, and we moved to downtown Houston, and then the lockdown hit, the terrible, almost the end of the world, I say. But so I remember one Christmas time I turned to her and I said, I don't know about this. I don't want to sit around. I mean, I think I want to go back to school. She goes, why don't you? And with everything going on, I looked into Masters of Creative Writing online. And the number one online, or actually the number 2, was Lindenwood University in St. Charles. So I was like, why not?
Yeah.
And so in one of the classes, it was Zoom like this, some of them, was write a story that's near and dear to your heart. And something that actually happened that changed your life or whatever. That evening, I thought about it, had the word count. And so I emailed the professor and I said, hey, can we Zoom in that? So we did. And I said, I have a story that I think, and she said, can you tell this story in, a flash nonfiction, 1,500 words? I said, oh, I think I can. She goes, why don't you do it? She goes, right. Take a chance. So I did, and it brought back some really doing the research, having to go back to medical files and talk to friends and ask my dad questions because some of this stuff So I turned it in, and she had sent me a note afterwards. She said, "This is unbelievable. I've been teaching this class for years. Do you have other stories like this?" She goes, "Have you thought about doing a book?" I didn't laugh to myself, but is this something people? I said, other stories. I said, 40, 50 in my head. I don't have them written. She goes, why don't you do it? She goes, take your time. Well, I took 4 years and I had the manuscript together. My writing group in St. Charles, or in Fort Myers, I met this gal and we're dear friends now. And she's an editor for big magazines and for big publishers. And then she does small ones. And I said, hey, Claudia, I have this magazine. And she goes, well, why don't you send me a chapter or two? I go, well, I have it all done. She goes, well, if you trust me, because we know each other, she goes, send it to me, which you really normally wouldn't do that. Yeah. So I did. I sent it to her in about 2 or 3 days later. She sent me an email back. I'd love to be your editor. So she edited it. Then I went to another meeting like a year later, and she goes, "Hey," she said, "I talked to you about, I work with this Two Penny Publishing in Fort Myers or in Cape Coral. And I talked to the owner about you because they do nonfiction and memoir, and it's in your sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be somebody to query, to poach to." I said, "Oh, okay." So I didn't even look them up. I wrote it down, threw it in my little note box here. The next or two, they meet every week, every month. I'm at the meeting up there in Fort Myers, and so my editor is there, and she says, "I want to introduce you to Carol. She's the owner of Two Penny Publishing."
Oh, great fun.
So she says to me like this, she goes, "Brian," she goes, I heard about your story. Here's my card. I think we could do business." And I'm kind of taken back, like, wow. But my editor works, freelances for them. So my wife and I Zoomed, and there was a couple other places that were interested, publishers, but I ended up with Two Penny. They're local here in Florida. They've done a good job. And it's my first two books were on poetry
Mm-hmm.
and life, running, life, relationships, and that. Self-published, you can put them out on Amazon. Doesn't cost much. You hire somebody to do a cover. This is a different animal. And so I'm kind of new to it all. And I'm learning so much. But in the last year, I started blogging for Cure Today about all cancer. And I've gotten where you've read some of my blogs. I've heard from people around the country that have just read my blogs every month, and they've either been affected, a friend, a son, a neighbor, by testicular cancer or another cancer, and my words helped shape them. So I thought, this really might be something. So February 8th, it will be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and Walmart. And this is my story, but it is so many other people out there that are afraid they're like, "Oh, I have a brother or cousin that I think he felt something." And so I think how I tell the story, it's out like that. It's a great, everything is out there on the page. I don't dance around. You hear it from the horse himself. So I think that hopefully will inspire people to either start writing,
Right.
start reading more, or get checkups for whatever that, because there's everybody, it's hard to not go through life and not experience through your friends, family, or anybody that you see at the gym that hasn't had an experience with cancer in one form or another.
Well, that's why your story is so good, Brian, because you tell it all. You're very open about it. I have read your blogs in Cure, and that's how I found you. But your writing and your messages are so helpful, and I think that's a wonderful way to give back too. Is just writing, as you've been saying. So I know one of the articles I read, I think it was, I don't remember which blog it was, but it was about the routine that you follow, your motivation every day to get up, and how that helps you. Can you tell us a little bit about that routine?
My current routine?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, because we do live in Naples, Florida, which is paradise, we set the alarm at 6:15, 6:30, walk down to the beach, see pelicans, dolphins, come back, have his couple and wife, have coffee, breakfast, and then she does her thing, and I come in my office here, and I'll write for 2 or 4 hours. I might write a paragraph one day, kind of like Hemingway. I mean, he had, I don't know, it was, he wrote so many words a day. I don't have where I'll write 1,000 words a day. I might write 100, but I do that, and I save it, so I can go back maybe later in the day or whatever. And then I try to read each day. I try to read a lot, not so much, cancer and health, but what people are saying out there
Mm.
about life. I mean, because it's a lot, because, this right here
Mm.
is kind of the killer of us all, really, because, you're like, my calendar, oh, I have a 10 a.m. meeting. I have a doctor appointment. Oh, I'm going to the gym. And so sometimes I'll leave that. I'll get on my bike, go for a bike ride, and just let my mind go. And then that's what helps me with my blog each month. And I try to change it out and tell people that your story, don't think that it's minimal just because you're not somebody really, really famous, or, no one knows your name, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that I've met and talked to that they have a story to tell. And that's what gets me today. And if I didn't write and read and take those bike rides and let my mind wander, what would I do? Would I just sit around and, keep it all inside? Sometimes there's times when you have your quiet time, but there's times to talk to people. I have a dear friend. He's in his late 80s. He golfs and everything. He writes science fiction, so we don't have the same thing. But he's a man of faith.
Mm.
And I learned from him, because he asked me, he said, you're touching people in ways that you never knew during your cancer, after. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's my own therapy, right? Because when I think of January and February blog, I'm always a couple weeks ahead. I think, what haven't I told my readers? And there's things I probably, in my mind, as I'm walking through every day, that I haven't touched on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's wonderful. Wow. And you are reaching a lot of people. I think that's, it's like that. It's a wonderful life. You don't know what you do until what if you weren't here, kind of thing. Do you have a favorite type of writing? I mean, I know you've done poetry, memoir.
Because I did the 2 poetry books, and I still enter not as much fiction as I used to, but like prose, short stories, and about 225 a year. Most like $5 entry, 3, a lot of free. I'm $150 here, 25 there. You're not gonna, but the thrill is when they say you've been chosen, and we're having a Zoom. We'd like you to read.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that, yeah. There's been a few. It's you get 1 or 2 a year, and you just clap. It's a small accomplishments. But now my blog on Cure Today, I'm focused on that every day. I mean, that's pretty much what I write every day. And because I do have a small following that people will email me all, like you. That's how you contact
Right.
me. And so I just want to make a difference. Then those people, whoever those people are, if they're going through something, a friend or family, or they're not, but it helps them. Because sometimes just hearing my stories, reading that, maybe helps people with mental anguish or something, because it's overcoming that. You have to come to a point in life to understand that not everything, it's not a bowl of cherries. Like, what was it? Forrest Gump, right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 So life isn't a box of chocolate.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've talked a lot about giving back. Do you have, I guess, 2-part question? Some of the things you've done over the years, but also what advice would you give to any listeners, especially of testicular cancer, who might want to give back or get involved, or anything that you recommend?
Yeah. So first and foremost is, if you have a friend or a relative or someone that has shared, hey, I felt a lump, a bump, something, not right, see someone. your doctor isn't going to call his neighbors and say, "Hey, Joyce's husband here, and then get involved in your own small way." I had, like I had sent my first article a year ago into Cure Today just to see if they would publish it,
Right.
because it's an online magazine, and then they do a, that they mail out to a small one. And they did. And then like the second month I started on other projects, and I got an email. They said, "Oh, we'd like to see if you'd want to be a paid blogger." And I said, "Paid? Oh, well, what is that?" Well, I kind of knew that.
Yeah.
We pay it each month or a couple times, whatever. And as long as it's in the guidelines, you don't, and of course I don't use language, and I'm not using anything political or confrontational. And so then it's this kind of, I'd say in a year, there's very few blogs that they've changed much.
Ooh.
The title, they don't like my title.
All right.
So my editor didn't like a lot of my chapter titles either. So, we'll leave it at that, right?
I think they're hard to write myself, but so my other question is like, and you kind of answered it, first two parts again. Tell us the name of your book, where we can find it, and give us the dates again, the February dates, so people know where to get your book.
Yeah, I believe right now Ingram Sparks is saying, because Ingram Sparks and they're my online publisher, and then Amazon. I think February 8th you'll be able to see it. So it's called The Shriek I Do Remember, because I let out this shriek. And so that was actually my professor, Dr. Haig at Lindenwood, come up with that title. And I've credited this book to her, that she is the reason really for the book and then the title of the book. I learned so much through the lockdown, writing in a small bedroom, downtown Houston, in a townhouse. My wife's talking to her global team on the second floor, and I'm for through almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So that there is always a silver lining.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yep. What's next for you? I know the book is next, but anything else you want to share about what's ahead?
I'm going to have a couple book signings in my hometown back in Illinois. And I'm getting calls and buzzes on Facebook, and that is not just when the book's out, but then what, is this it? Is there going to be, I've thought about, I have to see how it goes over, what I hear in that. But I have thought about kind of like Jurassic Park, right? Is there a sequel? So do I go ahead, or do I go back and tell how I had a normal life from first grade till that? Not sure if I want to go back, or so I think there may be some kind of a sequel, because I got to keep writing.
Yeah.
And this is very near and dear to me, as is your podcast. I mean, this whole cancer survival, talking about it, reading is so near and dear to me. Is I have to keep it going. I got to keep the juices flowing each day, because I don't want to maybe miss out on one lost person that they buy my book, they read my blog, and they start going to get checkups.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say you have great accomplishments as a writer, and I think it's very cool that your professor talked to you and told you to keep writing, and you have other stories, and that doesn't happen all the time. So that's a great compliment to your talent. So congrats on that, Brian. Really, I mean that.
Thank you.
So my last question is, what song, when you hear it, do you have to sing along?
So my wife would know this, but my friends and family might. Probably number one, My Way, Frank Sinatra.
Okay. All right. And why?
If I'm in with friends, in Chicago. We have friends in Chicago, Peoria, Atlanta. We just got back from Europe. If I hear that in an elevator or something, I don't care if these are all strangers. I just start singing it. Because it still has meaning today. Because he did it his way. He didn't. When Frank wrote that, I think he thought, there was times where he lost his voice and he went through a lot of, in life. But he thought, I'm going to stick with what I know. And he did.
Yeah.
And that song just kind of always has resonated with me, and probably now more than ever.
That's a great choice. That makes sense. So, yeah, thanks. Well, I appreciate all your time, Brian. I'm glad you could join me, and maybe have you come back next year when you have your new book out, if there is one. So,
no, man, it might be 3 years because
yeah, that's right. I will put a time label. Yeah, but thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to our program on your favorite podcast directory. You can also visit the Max Mallory Foundation at www.maxmalloryfoundation.com/podcast to listen to previous podcast episodes or donate to the foundation. Join us again next time for another episode of Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer.
Fake.